For the month of June, we've been revisiting the 5 Gokyo no Wazas of Kodokan Judo. The 40 traditional throws of Kodokan Judo. We've been taking the whole month of June to take and review those 40 techniques. And I know some of you have thought, oh, we're going to do this again. We're going to practice those techniques again. Well, I want you to know, and I've said it to my students before, that that repetition is the father of all learning. And in the martial arts, that could not be more true. That repetition is the father of all learning. And the only way you're really going to learn your martial art, the only way you're really going to master your martial art, is by repetition. Practicing these techniques over and over and over again. And I've also shared with my students, the thing that I can share with you, the thing that I can teach you technique. I cannot teach you the spirit of the martial arts. The spirit of the martial arts is something that you have to discover on your own, in your own mind and in your own heart. The spirit of what kind of martial artist you're going to be. But when we practice technique, anyone with any qualifications can teach technique. And you can master technique. But to be a true martial artist in the true sense of the word, in the true spirit of the word, the Budo of the martial arts, you have to pursue that with the utmost effort. Continual diligence is what you need to become the best martial artist that you can be. And I unfortunately can't teach you the spirit of the martial arts. I can talk about the spirit of the martial arts. I can share my ideas concerning the spirit of the martial arts. But teaching the Budo of the martial arts is something you have to find in your own heart. Musashi, the great samurai warrior from Japan, had 60 undefeated sword fights. Undefeated. And never been beaten. And he met a Zen monk by the name of Takanaga, and Musashi was beat. Lost. First time in 61 fights. He had previously won 60. And that's to the death. For a lot of those. But he lost. Why his life was spared, I have no idea. But Musashi went into the temple and didn't come out for weeks, and he was trying to determine why he had lost. And he determined through meditation, thought, and practice that he lost because he didn't have the spirit that Takanaga had. He didn't have the inner depth in his martial art. And he discovered through himself what it was that he needed to become a true samurai and a true master in his own art. And he spent weeks and weeks and weeks in the temple coming to that realization. And to be a true martial artist, that's the realization that you have to come to. You have to come to. And I've shared with all my students, one of the first things you need to do is empty your cup. You need to empty your cup. And I've shared with you the Zen story of a student that wanted to come and learn and train with the master, and he knocked continuously on his door, and the master kept telling him to go home, go home. He'd come back and knock again, and the master would tell him to go home, go home. No room, no room, no time, go home. He kept coming back, persistent. effort, diligent effort. What it takes for any martial artist to be successful. Finally, one day the master invited him in for a cup of tea. And the student was just excited. He came into the master's room, sat down in traditional form, and the master had a pot of tea ready, prepared. He invited the student in, and the student began to tell the master all the things that he knew. He began to tell the master all of the accomplishments that he had had up to that point. He began to tell the master how good he was. He began to tell the master all the wonderful things about himself and how he was going to be a great student for the master. And the master reached out and gave him his cup. And the master took a cup. And the master picked up the pot of tea and began pouring the tea into the student's cup as he held it in his hand. And the cup filled right up to the rim, and the master kept pouring and poured more. And the tea was flowing out over the cup, onto the table, onto the floor, and the master continued to pour, and the student just panicked. And finally he responded and said, Master, can't you see? My cup is full. My cup is full. Stop pouring. It cannot hold anymore. It's full. The master stopped pouring the tea and set down the pot. And he said, oh, just as this cup is full and overflowing, so are you. Your cup is so full and so overflowing, there is no more room to learn anything else because you think you already know it all. Your cup is way too full. And until you empty your cup, there will be no more room for learning. And so many of us in the martial arts, we come to a point where we think we know it all. We're good. We're really, really, really good. And that is not the attitude a martial artist should have at all. Because once you come to that point in your life, there's no more room for learning. No more room for learning. Because in the mind of a beginner, there's always room for learning. There's always, you want to know more. Teach me more, teach me more, teach me more. But in the mind of an expert, there are no possibilities. So have the mind of a beginner when you learn. And the Japanese have a concept called Mushim. Mushim. It's referred to as no mind. At some point in your martial arts career, you should come to a point of Mushim, no mind. Everything is done instinctively. Your muscles have so much memory from the continual practice and the repetition over and over and over again. One of the ways I can describe Mushim to you, the Japanese concept of no mind, is some of us in the room today, we've been driving cars for quite some time. I've been driving a car for over 40 years. You know, I have had so much practice at driving a car over and over and over again that I don't even need to think about what it is that I'm doing. I do it instinctively. When I get into a car, I can be holding a conversation with the person, the individual in the passenger seat, and not even be thinking about that I have to turn the blinker on, that I have to push my foot on the accelerator. If I'm approaching a stop sign and the light is red, or the stoplight is red, I instinctively know I have to put the brake on. I don't have to be thinking about any of these things anymore. I drive because my muscles have memory and they know what to do instinctively through repetition over and over and over again. Some of you don't drive a car yet, but you ride a bike. Once you learned how to drive a bike and you practiced riding that bike over and over and over again, you don't even have to think about how to ride a bike anymore. That's no mind. That's Mushim. That's the Japanese concept in the martial arts of Mushim. No mind. You can do it without having to think about it. When you practice a Tawatoshi, Right now in your mind, you might be practicing in steps. Okay, step 1, I have to step in. Step 2, I have to pivot around. Step 3, I have to come across, and you think of the technique in moves in step 1, step 2, step 3. When you become a master at that technique, you don't even have to think about it anymore. Your muscles have memorized what a tawatoshi is, and you can do a tawatoshi instinctively. The minute an individual reaches out for you to either grab you by the lapel, maybe to punch you, maybe to attack you with this arm for some reason, you instinctively know what to do. You don't even have to think about what to do with that arm. And your technique is there, and boom, the man hits the ground before he even knows what happened. You instinctively respond. Mushim, no mind. The only way you're going to arrive at Mushim is by repetition. Practicing these techniques over and over and over again. And that's what we do in the martial arts. And one day, all of us may become a master. Because we have practiced so long and so hard and so diligently. So when your sensei tells you we're going to practice a particular technique, don't say to yourself, again, we're going to do that technique again. Because all the techniques found in Kodokan Judo, we're going to train over and over and over again. All of the techniques that we learn in Jiu-Jitsu, we should be training them over and over and over again. Sometimes time is our limitation. We have limits because of our time. But as a martial artist, through the years of your dedication and your commitment, repetition is going to make you a master. So never balk at repetition, because our goal is Mushim, in the Japanese spirit of no mind. One day, we are going to play Judo and Jujitsu, and we are going to be playing without having to think about what it is that we're doing. And our muscles will have so much memory because we practiced over and over and over again. So tonight, we begin the 4th Gokyo from the Gokyo no Waza, the 8 techniques found in the 4th Gokyo. And the whole month of June, we're just going to review 5 of the Gokyos. And we are going to practice over and over and over again. And then, probably in July and August, we'll go back and hit some of the techniques that we find very difficult, and we will spend like 2 hours on one technique. Whether it be the Haraya Goshi or the Uchimata, or whether it be one of the Machikomis. We'll just take one technique and we'll practice over and over and over again. So never balk at the fact that we're doing this again, because it's making us the martial artists that we need to be. So keep that in mind. Okay? All right, let's begin.